What's going on, YouTube? Hope everyone's doing all right, man. I just wanted to give a quick update on the car. I've been working on a lot of wiring recently, and I figured it was a good time to make a video before I started putting everything away as far as wiring goes, because once I really start closing things out, you're not going to be able to see anything. So I figured I would give an update and just show you guys what I've been up to. And I kind of wanted to cover some topics that I really haven't seen covered in a lot of videos. So really the starter, fuel pump control, and alternator. Excuse me. And I should have said starter control, because just powering the starter is really not a big deal. It's the control side that we're really worried about. But I guess I'll start with the alternator. So as far as alternators go, there's really two main things you got to worry about. One is the power side, which is going to be this thick cable. For me, it's a 4-gauge cable that I used, and this is routed down to the starter. On the starter lug, I also connected a connection to the battery. So the alternator, starter, and battery are basically all connected. So really, in typical cars, you would have the alternator connected directly to the battery, but only because the battery's in the trunk in this car, I decided to run it to the starter and then from the starter to the battery, because I don't want to run an independent wire all the way back to the battery. Seems a bit redundant and unnecessary. But as far as alternator control, alternators have this plug inside of them. Mine is a 4-wire plug. I'm sorry. But as far as what I'm using for the plug itself, it's a single wire. You can see that right here. But basically, this wire was from ICT Billet on Amazon. I think it was 20 bucks. Has a built-in resistor. And from what I was reading online, it's so it can convert the 12-volt DC voltage to a 5-volt square wave. And I'm not exactly sure like why that matters, but my assumption is that the alternator wants to see that square wave to understand what the car voltage is at any given time. So, and typically what you would find on an alternator output is 14 volts DC. So my assumption is that the square wave changes depending on if that goes higher or lower, and the intent is to keep the alternator and regulator within spec, right? So the ideal output voltage is 14 volts. So the one wire is there to reference what the alternator is putting out. If it's putting out too much, I'm sure the square wave changes between frequency or duty cycle or whatever. And then the alternator recognizes that, and then we'll cut back voltage, et cetera, et cetera. So that was my solution. It's on Amazon. It's a 96-inch wire. It's got a resistor built in. It's made by ICT Billet. And this is my solution for now. Like I said, when I get the motor running, I'll have to see if that is actually a real solution or not, or if I did it wrong or whatever, right? But that would be my suggestion. Just check that out. For those guys that don't know. And you're connecting it to switched power. So when the key is in the run position, I tapped into the basically like the cigarette lighter, or like I think they call it the power socket or whatever on the fuse panel. That's what I tapped into, because 99% of the time, no one is pushing the button to light a cigar. You know, people might be charging their phone or something. You know, 99% of the time that thing's unused. So, and only thing I want to caution you guys on is I did use like people call them add a fuse taps or whatever. These are add a fuse taps or whatever, but do not exceed the current rating for the fuse. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but the original circuit was 7.5 amps. So I added a 7.5 amp fuse into the circuit. That applies for every electrical circuit. Do not exceed the current capacity of the circuit, because you're going to have a bad time. But anyway, that was my solution. I T-tapped it, or I'm sorry, fuse tapped it, or whatever you're gonna call it. But anyway, that was my solution for the alternator. Like I said, that wire goes down to the starter, and then from the starter goes back to the battery, which brings me to my next point, which is the starter. And I'll talk about starter control in a second, but all I did was I ran the alternator cable, which is this 4-gauge cable right here, back to the starter lug, which also attaches to the that's the oh goodness, the OEM starter cable right here. So let me see if I can get a better picture for you guys. Yeah, so you can see this black wire right here. Sorry guys, this black wire is the OEM battery cable to power the starter, and there's actually a lug that hangs off this guy to attach to the OEM BMW starter. I cut that off with a cutoff wheel, and then I ended up using some heat shrink tubing to protect it, and then added a new copper lug and attached that to the starter lug. So my alternator and starter lug are connected, which is connected to the battery. So that was my solution for that. As far as starter control, let me come around to the fuse box here. Sorry guys. I know a lot of guys were talking about EWS bypass and DME bypass, and big shout out to Todd Smith. He's another guy on YouTube that has done this swap, and I've been messaging with him, and I really appreciate it if you're watching my videos. I've been using your videos, but he had the ignition circuit laid out in one of his videos. So my intent was to go from ignition, which I assumed was 12 volt switched, to straight to the EWS, and then trying to intercept the 12 volt switch signal and then ground it out to something else basically. So that was my kind of intent, and I kind of understand his video where he basically said like, well, we already have the wires existing, basically tie them together and you're done. But I was kind of a knucklehead and I cut a lot of my wires out and I just made a mess. So I was able to get 12 volts switched at the EWS box, which I'll show you in a second. And then I just added in an additional relay, which I grounded out on this chassis ground right here. And then that gave me starter control. So I don't know if that helps you guys out, but this was the relay that I added in. I have it unhooked right now because I was messing with the fuel pump and I wanted to see, I just didn't want the engine to crank over when I have the intake ports covered in tape. But I've already done it once. I know it does work, so I've already confirmed it. But in any case, for me, like I said, I used the 12 volt switched for the EWS for relay control, and then relay power I tapped into this little lug right here, and then this chassis ground right here, and that gives me control with the starter. So I don't know if that helps you guys out. I guess let me move inside the cab and I'll show you guys where I tapped into for the EWS. So my car is a 1995, and I know they changed EWS position from 97, I believe, upward, but pre-97 EWS is on the passenger side. Sorry guys, it's a little crowded in here, but this is my EWS box. EWS 2 is what I'm rolling with, and I was looking at some of the diagrams online, but basically you can see I tapped into the thicker black and yellow wire right there, and that's where I'm getting my 12 volt switched. So I'll tap, I'm basically gonna do some kind of tap into that black and yellow wire right here, this thick guy, and then it's the third Come on, focus. Yeah, it's a third cable, so you can see the design, and then you'll be able to see it. But when I do turn ignition to run or start, it does have 12-volt switch, so we're good there. But I will tap into it. But like I said, EWS is on the passenger side in my car, which is a 95. So just something to keep in mind, guys. Besides that, I did run a grommet through my firewall right here, and that is for Terminator X. So the black wire, the black loom is just power and ground. The blue is for attack output. The green is for fuel. The red is for that is to power injectors. The white, I can't remember, and the other wire, I can't remember what the hell that's for. Let me see, where the hell's that going? Yeah, it might be ground. It might be injector ground. I can't remember. Sorry, but yeah, that was my solution for starter control. And now, oh, almost dropped you. Now I'm going to go back to the trunk, and I'll show you how I dealt with fuel pump control. So in the trunk here, typically you would have your relay deal kind of sitting right there, right above your battery. So this light green guy, which is second from the right, is your fuel pump relay. And like I said, big shout out to Todd Smith. He said it was switched by ground. So I did confirm that with my test light. I hooked it up to positive, and I did see that it does use ground control. And basically on the back side, on the back side of these relays, so we're talking 1, 2, you'll have your 2 thicker wires, which are going to be this, at least for me, it was a red and purple and black and purple. And then and these are your power side, and then that looks like black and purple, and this looks like red and white with a yellow dash, is going to be control side. So basically all I did was take one side of the control and I grounded it. I grounded mine on the battery. You can see it right there. And then I used the Terminator X fuel pump control wire for the other side of the control. So when Terminator X sends 12-volt positive, it'll ground out the relay, or it'll click on the relay, and then it'll give power to my fuel pump. So we'll be in good shape there. But you could do that with your GM ECU. Surely the GM ECU has a fuel pump control wire. You would do the same thing. You would come back here, bring your wire back, take one side of the control, use it for your GM fuel pump, and then the other side would have to be tapped to the battery, and that's to switch polarity for the relay, because naturally the relay wants to see ground. So just keep that in mind. And like I said, big shout out to the guy that already had the diagram, Todd Smith. So, but yeah, guys, that's how I dealt with fuel pump control, and I did confirm that it worked. I did not confirm it through using the Terminator because I had to set up some more stuff before I can power it on, but I did confirm by going back up to the harness and giving it 12 volts positive, and the fuel pump spit out fuel. So good shape there. So I confirmed fuel pump, I confirmed starter, and alternator I will have to figure out once I get the car running. But I just wanted to give you all a quick rundown before I put everything back together and kind of button everything up, because once I do, you're not going to be able to really see any of this. So I just wanted to share that with y'all. But yeah, guys, I think that's it for tonight. Only other thing I wanted to talk about that I was thinking about this morning was, you know, I know guys are looking to do like a budget swap or whatever, and the Terminator X might seem like an expensive option, and I guess it kind of is, depending on what you want to do. I guess if you're running a pretty much factory motor, the GM ECU is not a bad choice. If you just want to do an LS swap and keep everything basically original and basically have like a truck motor, you would be in good shape. But Uh, the beauty of the Terminator X is I can reflash and do my own tune. Like if I wanted to add a turbo to this tomorrow, I could go to the GUI, or the graphic user interface, and rebuild a tune to support boost, right? And it'll have boost reference. It does data logging. I'm not getting paid by Holly or whatever. They make enough money, in my opinion, but I do think it is a worthwhile thing. I'm just here to suggest that if you're considering changing things down the road, or you just want to do a swap and be done, or I'm sorry, if you just want to do a swap and be done, then maybe the GM ECU is for you. But if you're considering changing things down the road or want some flexibility, or maybe just have have things a little easier, because the Terminator X was basically all labeled, like fuel pump, injectors, IAC, all that stuff was labeled. So it's a all things considered, it's a pretty easy solution. But I know it's not cheap, and a lot of guys are working on their cars on a budget, man. I totally get it, and I'm down with that too, man. I went to the junkyard, I pulled the GM ECU, and I pulled the harness, and after working with it, I was like, this harness is like 15, 20 years old, because I think I pulled it out of like a '02 Suburban with a 5.3 or something, or whatever it was, a Tahoe with a 5.3 or something, and I pulled the ECU out of the same thing, and I was like, by the time I get the ECU flashed, by the time I go and get dyno tuned for whatever, maybe I'm at like $500, and then if I end up doing like a standalone harness, maybe that's another 100 to 200, or if I depin the harness and repurpose it, maybe I'm in $20. But if I wanted to change things down the road, now you got to go back and kind of go back to your tuner and say, hey man, I added a turbo, help me out, and you're looking at another 500 to get it tuned. So if you guys haven't gotten this far yet, and you're thinking about, should I do GM ECU or do Terminator X, I would definitely suggest Terminator X. If you are using a computer controlled transmission like a 4L80 or 4L60, you're gonna have to get the Terminator X Max, which is I think a bit more, maybe 1,500, as opposed to like the 1K that you spend on the Terminator X. So anyway, guys, that's just my opinion. Y'all can do whatever you want with it, but I guess time is money. What do you want to do, right? I've always kind of thought buy once, cry once, right? But hey, man, I get it. Everyone has constraints, so y'all out there working on engines on a budget, man, hey, do your thing, man. I got a budget too, right? But anyway, guys, that's just my opinion. I hope this helps some of y'all out, and if y'all got questions, comments, leave things down in the comments. I'm happy to help out. Definitely go check out Todd Smith's channel. He has tons of stuff on how to do the swap. But yeah, that's it for tonight, guys. I'm gonna keep chugging along, try and get everything buttoned up, and then next thing I'm gonna work on is getting the intake plumbed in, and then I did get my intake, I guess plumbing, if you want to call it, intake tube or cold air intake or whatever. I did get that in, so that's on my list to do also. So anyway, guys, take care, and yeah, I'll keep you updated.